Let's start with the basics. Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail are not the same production-wise. Both games have their own teams, with their own different outlooks on how the games should run, which allows for some vast differences in psychology. Since this is the intro, allow me to give you some basic evidence for this. Genshin's commissions are done throughout the world and are small repeatable quests. These are done 4 times a day and take about 6 minutes. In Honkai Star Rail, you have a similar system in daily quests, but these are done as you do other activities in the game. From this small point, we'll be making the discussion. How does Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail differ in their methods? Let's focus on my initial point. Between the two, they take different approaches to allow the player to gain roles through doing certain tasks. Genshin takes the ideology, you need to explore the world and repeat the same few quests to gain this resource. However, Honkai Star Rail takes the opposite approach. Almost all the ways of completing the quests are done through playing normally as if they weren't there. Personally, Genshin's commissions have always been something which hasn't sat right with me since we went to Inazuma. Let's create an analogy. A river. Genshin's is a long, stretching river with only 4 streams. Honkai Star Rail is like a straight river with tiny streams. Logging in to do these quests quickly becomes boring. Using a small amount of maths, we can conclude that 4 commissions a day result in 28 a week. Remember, you will go out of your way each day to do these quests, and unless you are in a new area, they will always be the same. I believe again, Genshin came up with this idea as just that, an idea, but now later down the line they just follow the same recipes. This gives more content, but the content is repetitive. Let's start by giving Genshin some love. For this first point, I put forth the combat loop as one thing that will always trump Honkai Star Rail's combat. Do bear in mind that someone who enjoys turn-based games may disagree, but as fans of both, it's clear to see that there is more depth to the Genshin system when it comes to the gameplay loop. As a new player, you begin to get used to the main party of Lisa, the Traveler, Amber, and Kaya. Then you start adding some other 4 stars, and hopefully a 5 star. The system presents itself as simple, and slowly adds more components, which the player can easily learn over time. Loops have been a key factor in Genshin being so popular as it is today, 4 years down the line, even with a lack of permanent endgame features. Even right now, as I'm writing this, I'm having flashbacks to the pure enjoyment of playing Tartaglia, mastering his E, and mastering him. As much as Honkai Star Rail is great in combat, it's also fair to say there is a limit to pressing E and Q. There is active thought behind these decisions, but in this case, you can't really beat the fluidity of Genshin's combat. I may be presenting an unpopular opinion, but I'd enjoy if Honkai Star Rail created a character who does more damage depending on the timing. Giving the player that slight more concentration would do wonders for making the game more active for the player. Let's look at one thing that makes Hoyoverse all the big bucks. Honkai Star Rail has already provided a huge quantity of characters 1 year into their life, completely outclassing Genshin. Each character on Genshin comes and goes like a drip. The problem is, this drip has to hit the mark each and every time to make their money. Honkai Star Rail instead has a flow of characters coming out, so if you dislike the previous one, you only have to wait a month for someone else to come out. I won't be so harsh to call Genshin inferior compared to Honkai Star Rail, due to the differences to make characters in these games are different. But you can see in Honkai Impact 3rd, the characters are more alike to a flow of water, not a drip. So I ask myself, why? My best guess is they would rather have a few characters which are well designed and spread out to emphasize the fear of missing out. In the beginning, it all works out due to characters being new and different. But as the game gets older, it's harder and harder to create the effect so much. So instead of looking forward to the next character, it's just another. This discussion can simply be dismissed by saying Genshin is older. I believe that this is a point which negatively impacts the experience in comparison to Honkai's team. Let's flip our perspective. I believe the most pressing difference that will always beat Honkai is the worlds. In Genshin, you feel alike to a traveller in a real world, having to scale mountains, cross rivers, and explore new towns. No matter all the amazing features, playing Honkai games in comparison as if you're walking a narrow path, in other words, confined. Genshin in my eyes will never ever be defeated when it comes to creating an alive and beautiful game. To me, it feels reminiscent of the qualities of Ghibli movies. It feels like no one will be able to compete with them in their field. Let's use an analogy. Honkai is like a nerdy game trying to ensure a path which is fun with constant new additions to excite players. Genshin is a laid-back grandpa letting their kids, being players, play in their playground they so carefully made, allowing for the game to do the work and rarely pushing the player. Honkai's world is very beautiful, there is no doubt about it, but Genshin's will never be beaten due to how wide the world is and the growing scale of the game. If you do a little digging into the world of gacha games, you'll find that it's well known that Genshin is unusually harsh with roles. There have been many speculations in the past of a selection of old 5-star characters which you could choose. These thoughts never came to fruition, and instead they stick to their 10 to 20 roles for major events. Genshin, if they wanted to, could be far more generous to the player, but since the beginning it seemingly never happened. Every gacha player's favourite thing, rolling. You'd think over the years this would change. It has changed to a degree. You certainly get more than you did in the beginning. But it's clear at this point Genshin is behind in gifting roles. I really do wish they could increase this with my classic argument, endgame. Just adding one more mode with the same rewards as the Abyss could make a huge difference. Whichever way you take this, more primos from events or new modes, both are good in my eyes. It's only been out for a year, but so far Honkai Star Rail has shown more openness to gifting the player roles. Recently, there was an event gifting out roll tickets. The following event after, again, the player got more roll tickets. In my time in Genshin, I have never personally seen this happen before, let alone HSR gifting Dr. Ratio out for free. I do hope that Genshin does take a leaf out of Honkai Star Rail's method. Let's explore something. I want you, for a second, to think about a powerful character from either Genshin or Honkai. I could be wrong, but there's a good chance you thought about an Archon. The Archons are essentially a poster child for all of the zones in Genshin, which really does hit the oh my god, I really want this character vibe. This is something that could be viewed as a curse or a benefit. In a positive outlook, it means that the Genshin team will focus on certain characters and ensure that some have some of the coolest features a character can have, essentially being able to refine the character with the pretext of it being an Archon. It's true for me that I haven't felt this overwhelming need for a character when it comes to Honkai Star Rail. Aside from Archon, I mean, look at her, which does prove to me that they are genuinely unique. Now, onto the negative outlook. By focusing your main efforts into creating an Archon, you do need to use extra resources to ensure that they all stand out. But over the last couple of years, the game has really ensured that all of their characters have a unique style. Instead of so carefully making these characters, they could be sharing it around, taking a character which you may already like and pushing it to the next level. Both views are fair, but I think it's something to consider when you're comparing them. Honkai Star Rail is quantity and generally a standard 5-star for all, whereas Genshin has 5 stars who act like 6 stars and base 5 stars. For my last point of this video, let's consider variety. By this, I mean the variety of chests you get inside of Genshin Impact. From the beginning, it's had the same rewards since the start of the game, and to me this has been a huge problem for Genshin, and Honkai Star Rail will likely fall into this pitfall if they aren't careful either. Simply put, the same bait every time gets boring. We aren't fish, we're people, and we want to have a worthwhile reward for opening these chests. But honestly, it just feels like in Genshin, they are just put around the world with a few puzzles, and that's the limit of the thought. It would be extremely nice to have some chests with maybe some 5-star artifacts, some with more Mora, and so on. Another thing I'd like to see is a repeatable chest experience. Maybe every week they can choose an area with a location marked on the map, take a compass and find the treasures for extra in-game rewards and hopefully some rolls. Genshin doesn't have to take my endgame outlook, but if it's kept casual, there are plenty of options to make the game more varied than it is currently. This is the current issue for Genshin, and Honkai Star Rail will likely fall victim to this too. The game is new and on a different team, so it might not happen. So this is aimed at both. Make chests feel worthwhile again, not just a side thought. I would go as far to say it's an annoyance. There is a key differentiating factor when considering these games together. Genshin is designed around the player exploring new regions, and that being one of the main drawing points of the game. Honkai Star Rail instead takes the stance of them being a side note to the game, something you do as you explore the area for the first time. Due to this, Genshin should have to consider this fall with more urgency in comparison to Honkai Star Rail. Thanks for getting to the end of the video, I really appreciate it. I'm now unscripted, I'm not going off of a script. I just want to say thanks for everyone viewing the video and giving it some love. And also I'm very thankful that my short managed to get quite a lot of views, being the first time I've ever uploaded a short on this channel. I really do appreciate it. I do want to say that I might be switching editing programs, so the quality might go down for a little bit while I learn everything. I'm not entirely sure. I will try it, and if it doesn't work out, then I won't stay with it. But I'm kind of concerned with using CapCut, and maybe it gets banned at some point. I would rather learn to use a proper editing software so I can keep consistency in what I'm doing. But yeah, if you made it all the way here, then thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want to, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.